Welcome back, everyone. POW Ponder on Weather here with another weather forecast. Let's first start off with this snowstorm that's happening across the Northeast right now that we literally been talking about for a week on this channel. And in fact, these are common scenes across Vermont and New Hampshire this morning into the afternoon hours, where upwards to 2 feet of snow has already fallen in these areas. And it's still cranking up there and the winds are howling. In fact, let's take a look at the latest HRRR guidance. About 2 o'clock this afternoon, we did in fact see the changeover to snow across portions of New York City, but inland it's still snowing pretty heavily across upstate New York, as well as into Vermont and New Hampshire and southern portions of Maine. And that will actually continue through the afternoon time frame, changing back over to rain along in and around New York City, but then changing over to all snow again, still across portions of New England, as this snowstorm will start to wind itself down into the overnight hours, but not before really leaving a mark. And I would not be surprised we see some 30-inch totals across portions of New England, with basically the biggest snowstorm of the season that they've seen so far. And let's take a look at the setup out west, because we have another powerful system that's pounding the West Coast right now. In fact, they've got rare, high, excessive flooding warnings out there across portions of Central California, essentially from Monterey all the way down to near Los Angeles. That is rare to see a high risk for excessive rainfall, but even moderate risk across the board, essentially almost covering the entire state of California. Let's take a look at the overall setup as far as high risk are concerned. These are dangerous days. In fact, they only have about 4% out of all the days that the Weather Prediction Center actually issues a high risk days. So those are dangerous days in terms of potential fatalities because of all this accumulated water, the saturated soils, and coming down too fast all at once. In fact, 39% of all fatalities, flood related fatalities, happen on high risk days, and 83% happen that cause flood damage within these areas. So these are extremely dangerous days, and in fact, compounding on some of the rainfall that has already fallen and what still has to come. These are some preliminary guidance from the latest high resolution models going all the way through about midnight tonight, and they still drop in another couple inches along the coast, even down towards Los Angeles, upwards to almost 4 more inches of rainfall. That is a dangerous setup, and that's why we have all those moderate and high risk for excessive rainfall. And this is on top of what's already fallen, and they still have more atmospheric river events to come in the days ahead. But towards the southeast again, we do have numerous freeze watches and freeze warnings in place for tonight into tomorrow morning across portions of the southeast. These temperatures going into tomorrow morning around 7 o'clock in the morning, you're going to wake up. So anywhere these areas that you did actually plant early, that you will need to be able to have to bring them inside, or at least cover them up, because they are going to have some frost and some freezes within this area. And it sinks fairly pretty good south across the southeast with those freeze warnings, dipping all the way down into the middle of Alabama region. And so that's pretty cold stuff for this late in the season for middle of March standards. But the same system that's impacting the West Coast today will also be impacting the southern plains as we go into Thursday timeframe. So you're cool right now across the central plains, but we are going to see a rapid warm up during the day on Thursday as the winds turn around and those temperatures rapidly surge well into the 70s across a good part of Texas and as well as into Oklahoma. That will also add into some instability with this trough coming in. Will provide that lift mechanism, and that's why we do have that slight risk for severe storms across Oklahoma City, across the Dallas-Fort Worth area, getting into parts of central Texas, as well as East Texas through the Arklatex region as we get into the afternoon, early evening time frame. In fact, once you get into the East Texas we are looking at fairly significant high numbers for possible tornadoes potentially within this sector, within the warm sector. You'll probably be looking at in the early evening time frame, probably after 6 o'clock, is the highlighted area into East Texas, going into the Arctic region, where the atmosphere will be rotating, that we have to be concerned about some tornadic supercells starting to unfold in this region. But before that, we have a lot of what they call prefrontal convection. So before that, we have numerous supercell thunderstorms that could pop up in the heat of the afternoon, probably after, like, say, 1 o'clock time frame, and around Oklahoma City time frame, in and around the Dallas-Fort Worth area, going into East Texas. These are isolated potential supercells within this sector that could be large hail producers, because we do have a fairly significant cold front that's going to be coming in from the northwest. So we'll have a window there, for a short-term window, to see some larger hailstones with this particular setup. But on the back end, we'll have supercells converging into a solid line, and then we'll have that squall line move through. So that squall line is going to be accompanied with that damaging wind threat. And I think if there's any type of cap that will be in place before the prefrontal convergence, then the strong cold front will help weaken that cap, and then produce those numerous showers and thunderstorms along that cold front, going into that 6-7 o'clock time frame, moving out of Oklahoma City, going into southeastern Oklahoma, heading into the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and eventually heading off to the East Texas. And before then, that's when I think they'll turn more or less tornadic. And then we have to be looking for potential tornadoes heading into East Texas and going through the Arctic region into the evening time frame on your Thursday. But then the strong cold front comes through, so you can actually see the sharp temperature gradient by about 10 o'clock time frame on your Thursday evening, as those temperatures rapidly drop, southbound, after that cold front. So we're looking at well into the 70s out ahead of it, and then you're seeing about a 20-degree drop once that cold front moves through, and that will be your saving grace when, say, hey, you can pull the all clear signal. And when that cold front, when you feel cold air in your backyard, that's the signal that the severe threat is over for your area, and then you can rest easy for the rest of the night. But if you're in that warm sector still, you're still going to have to be concerned about those strong thunderstorms, and some of those could be on the severe side. But as you wake up onto Friday morning around 7 o'clock, you can see the cold front. This is fairly strong for March standards, dropping all the way down into South Texas. And that's kind of rare, because these cold fronts they've been moving southbound, but they really haven't. We've been fighting with this southeast ridge for a long time. It seems like several months now, and these cold fronts have not been able to make it really that far south. So this is kind of rare to see something this late in the season, especially into March, having this cold front move all the way through really Texas. And eventually I think it actually clears even a good part of the southeast as well, because that's a good signal, because these temperatures out there in the Gulf of Mexico are boiling. And I'm really concerned about the severe weather season up front, because we're coming out of a La Nina. They put the squash on the La Nina. Now we're going into a more of an end zone neutral setup. The jet stream is typically more active in those type setups, and the Gulf of Mexico is boiling. It is open for business, and I'm really concerned once these temperatures start to warm up, and especially looking at some of the longer range guidance as we head into April. I am definitely looking at for some high impact severe weather events heading into April, as well as even into May, because the Gulf of Mexico is literally on fire. So anytime we can get these cold fronts to hit some of that warmer sea surface temperature anomalies down there, that will help the matter somewhat. So we got to pray that that cold front will definitely reach portions of the Gulf of Mexico and at least put some sort of little squash on these higher sea surface temperatures, because I'm definitely concerned once everything kind of turns around that we're going to be in for a big severe weather spring season. So, but once we get into Saturday, heading into Sunday, that cold front's fairly significant, and it's got legs with it, meaning it's got a colder push from the north. The teleconnections are hitting. We talked about this sudden stratospheric warming event that unfolded. It takes several weeks to come down from the mid latitudes and filter into the U.S., and that's exactly what we're seeing. A lot of areas are getting to be well below average temperatures for an extended period of time. And there's going to be frost and freezes all the way down into the southern plains as well as into the southeast. So do expect several more freezes potentially on the table before we can say goodbye and throw in the towel into those wintertime temperatures, because all indications are that most of the United States is well below average for at least for the next 6 to 10 days. And a lot of these areas, so you're seeing a lot of these areas, again, 10, 15, upwards to possibly 20 degrees below average in spots. So that's definitely going to put the squash on all those colder, those colder temperatures pushing all the way down to the deep south. And at the same time, we still got those atmospheric river events well into play. We've seen all the flooding happening right now across the West Coast. We're going to see more setups continue to move in across a good part of California, and also parts of the Southwest is going to be getting the action as well. At the same time, we're going to have these cold fronts penetrating from the north, converging into some of that above average precipitation. And we could be looking at some snow, believe it or not, in parts of the Four Corners regions, extended into Colorado, extended into a good part of New Mexico by the time you wake up on Sunday morning, and even some snow going to be flying into portions of the Texas Panhandle, probably portions of far west Texas, and also into the Big Bend area, into West Texas. That colder air continues to pull down from the north. And even on Monday, that cold air kind of definitely hangs around. You can actually see where the freeze line potentially could be, but it dips in some of the higher elevations. Again, these elevations out here in far west Texas, 3, 4, 5,000 feet, and even in the Big Bend region, they can be upwards to 7,000 feet in some of the mountaintops out there. So it's not out of the question we could be looking at some snowflakes flying. But yes, once you get into portions of central Texas, say like in the Austin area, that would be pretty rare to see a snowflake fly in those regions. The last time I looked at the stats, the last time snow is actually falling, the latest of the season was actually March the 7th in and around the Austin area. And right now they put it at about a 12% chance. So it's not zero, but you do have potentially at least about possibly a 10% chance to see a snowflake or two, even in the Austin area, as we get into, say, Monday morning time frame. At least that's the way it looks right now. Of course, if anything like that happens, they would just be looking at the sky and not, just kind of melt on contact. But yes, and this would be actually the last official day of winter. So I appreciate you guys watching. Do hit the subscribe button and catch me in the next update while I protect you before and after the storm.